Hello, you're watching TVP World Talks. I'm Jonasz Rewiński. An unexpected twist came late on Thursday to Poland's US troop deployment debate, with President Donald Trump announcing an additional 5,000 soldiers would now join the units already stationed on the Polish soil. Given the recent confusion caused by a 4,000-strong rotational force being unexpectedly suspended, this latest comment by the US President has caused quite a stir, which begs the question: how will the final US Army presence in Poland actually look like, and what further moves can we expect from the Trump administration in this regard? Joining us here today is Marta Prochwicz, Deputy Head of Warsaw Office of the European Council on Foreign Relations. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning.
So what were your initial impressions when you heard that announcement? It only came yesterday, and it appears that it lacks clarity insofar as the whole situation is concerned. So what do you think is going to be the final number we're talking about? Is it 5,000 more? Is it less than that? What are we really looking at here?
I think it is very, very uncertain what this will look like in reality. But what is important is that we have to distinguish between the political rhetoric, so the noise that is coming out of the White House, and what is happening, the facts on the ground. And the facts on the ground is that the Armored Brigade combat team from Żagań in western Poland, which is between 4,000 and 7,000 US troops, has been cancelled. And that also affects the Eastern Forward presence that we have in the western part of the country.
You're talking about 7,000. That number was actually never given before. It never appeared on the news. And you're saying it was cancelled. Do you mean permanently, or do you mean this suspension of rotation that President J.D. Vance also said is only temporary because it's the way the military actually works?
I mean, it's very, very hard to tell right now because of how much is going on at the same time. And I can't say for certain, but for the time being, it seems that this rotation has been cancelled.
So it's this rotation, right? But the
Yes.
troops which are already here, are they being pulled or are they staying? Because someone said, well, it's no big deal really, because they will just stay for a longer time, and when the rotation is unsuspended, this will just be business as usual. But is it certain that it will be so?
No, it's not business as usual. The fact that we're having this discussion and we in a television studio are discussing whether it's 4,000, 4,700 and who said what is extremely ridiculous. This is not the discussion that we should be having right now. It's absolutely obvious that what Poland considers to be its main ally is an unreliable ally, and it is finally time to turn to the European side of things and our other NATO allies who have been unwavering throughout this process. There are 31 other members of NATO as an organization. The United States says one thing and then does another. So that's why I cannot tell you what the number will be at the end of the day. But what I can tell you is that we should not be relying on this number. We need to create alternatives.
It's also the most powerful of these military forces. I mean, it has always been the very foundation of the alliance itself. So when you're talking about the European side of things, how soon could this be an alternative, really, when it comes to the military prowess of these countries? Because it varies from country to country. Let's be, let's be honest about this.
Well, European forces have been increasing their defense spending dramatically since the full-scale invasion in Ukraine. The European Union has put forward defense mechanisms and funding at an unprecedented rate, and is also providing the backstop when it comes to military mobility and everything that is needed for conflict.
And support for Ukraine.
And support for Ukraine, of course, yeah. And so what is very clear is that this is the direction on which we need to build new European defense. And I hope that it will be with the United States where we can, but without the United States where it is needed. And right now, Europe, in the list of American priorities, has been deprioritized. It is no longer on the list as high. And we've been saying this, and I've been saying this in this studio also many times, it is no longer a priority. The Western Hemisphere, probably the Middle East right now, the Indo-Pacific are priorities. So what more proof do we need? Even if we end up getting 5,000 and there is no cancellation, another one could happen in a month, or within a couple of months, something else could change. So the alternative is building on NATO, because NATO already has the capability plans, it has the targets, and we use the structures that are already in place, but replace them with a European force posture, and we start to develop our capabilities very, very seriously, because that is not happening. The European defense and industrial complex is not yet scaled up and in movement and at the speed that we need it to be in order to provide the deterrence that we need.
So in a way, this is what the Americans wanted us to do. I mean, they were saying, look, you need to scale up your defense capabilities. You're essentially not spending enough, and you're counting on us to actually do the fighting for you, which of course is not going to happen to the extent that some countries would have liked it to. But then we have certain capability gaps, like long-range missiles, cruise missiles in particular. We're not even manufacturing any of those. We don't have strategic bombers. We do not have, obviously, the capacity to project power like the US has with aircraft carriers. A few countries really have those. So do you think that it is simply trying to find, it's about finding a new equilibrium, like saying, okay, so we're actually increasing the capabilities that we have, but we will also continue to rely insofar as the stuff that we do not manufacture, and we're not going to manufacture anytime soon, is concerned. Stealth fighters, another thing. Like the US is pretty much the only country that is providing these for the time being, right?
It's a complex picture. I mean, we have to walk and chew gum at the same time. Where we need to rely on the Americans, on the capability caps that have been identified, which what you mentioned is fair enough, the missiles and the fighter jets. However, where we rely most on and is most difficult to replace is the ISR, which is the reconnaissance part, the targeting. And the nuclear capability, of course,
naturally,
the nuclear deterrence. So those, this is not possible to be replaced in the short term, the nuclear component, I mean, but we need to be working on European alternatives right now. And it's not true that we don't have missiles. It's not true that we don't have deep precision strike. We do. Europeans are manufacturing this, and the speed at which they are scaling up and increasing production and co-development and procuring from abroad is extravagant. So it is happening, and they are producing fighter jets. There's setbacks sometimes, but there isn't. And so what we're building...
the stealth fighter jet, I think, fifth generation project isn't really going anywhere, is it? I mean, there were questions, manufacturers in different countries involved have been arguing about this. Just one question about the missiles, though, because obviously we do have missiles like the Taurus or the Storm Shadow, but the range of those, about 500 kilometers, give or take. The US, though, still has missiles like the Tomahawk, which has a far greater range. Do you think we should rely on other manufacturers, for example, Turkey or even Ukraine, which is actively developing missiles of a similar kind, though perhaps slightly less sophisticated technologically in this regard?
Yes, I think we should procure from abroad where we can. So again, it's walk and chew gum at the same time. We procure from abroad. If the United States were to sell us any weapons, the Tomahawks, for example, we take those and we buy those. If South Korea sells us any of their missiles, we buy those and we run with that. And yes, there is a very good balance to be had between drones, which are capable of doing the same damage as missiles, but we need both, and we need more ground-launched missiles. And these are in the making. France is one of the forerunners in the production of these. And of course, the timelines here are around, the minimum is 2032, but this is what we need to build towards. So we don't want the United States to build these capabilities, but only today is there's going to be another announcement coming in Brussels of what the United States will be providing as part of a possible activation of Article 5. So we might expect even more news coming out of this today. But I just want to go back for a second on what you said on how we actually implement this change. And I think that we need a transformation of NATO. So the capability side is absolutely necessary. And as I said, it needs to be a mix of what we procure from abroad and what we produce in Europe, so that we have that within within the next 10 years. We are still dependent, so it's not that we want to kick out the Americans completely, but they are leaving themselves, as you've pointed out in the 5,000, 4,000 rotation or whatever is happening on that front. What we need to do is run with the idea that they want us to take over the conventional defense and build on it. So there are 4 joint force commands as part of NATO, and those are already being taken over by European commanders. So it's already happening, and that's the first step in the right direction. But what we need now is a mutual defense clause that is below Article 5 on the level of the countries that are under the JFCs, which are responsible for the Nordic and the Baltic and Poland and Germany, so that they can actually be operational when push comes to shove.
Are you not concerned about the political side of things? Some say, well, European unity might be fragile if far-right or indeed far-left parties win over, in crucial countries like France, Germany, and there are signs of that they are gaining momentum. Some of them have a rather different stance on foreign policy and say, well, Russia is not as much of a threat. We would rather actually have cooperation with Russia, cheap energy and all that. Aren't you concerned that this could actually turn, the things on the situation on its head once again? And we might be looking, well, isn't the US actually a more reliable ally in this regard? Because such a radical shift would probably not happen. Like, even now it is radical, but not quite as radical.
It is extremely radical. I mean, everything that is coming out politically out of the White House is questioning the credibility of Article 5. So we have no other choice but to actually work with what is on the ground. And yes, political changes in Western Europe may also be, of course, dangerous to this political equation.
Like the French far-right promising to reduce, the involvement in NATO. I mean, this sounds at least as radical to me.
But the thing is that we're working with sub-regional coalitions, which in this case France is not a part of. Of course, France ideally stays on board, and there's still a lot can happen. But in the case of a French president, if it were to be Jordan Bardella, there might be some change when it comes to the NATO posture, but it will not block the mutual assistance, which I'm talking about, which would be underneath Article 5, because this is a sub-regional coalition which has a common threat perception. This is the Nordics and the Baltics and Poland working together.
Marta Prochwicz was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insight.
Thank you very much.
And I'm Jonasz. You're watching TVP World. Please stay with us for more latest news, updates and commentary.